on to our last bit of news, and that is the death of former President George H.W. Bush. He was the 41st president of these United States. He was, I believe, an Navy pilot, and he served during World War II. He was director of the CIA, and he was vice president under Ronald Reagan. Of his children, I guess the two most well known are Jeb Bush, who was the former governor of Florida, and also George Walker Bush, Jr., who was the 40s. Don't screw this up. 43rd president of the United States, who not a lot of people think fondly of, but yes, their father and son were presidents. Yes, and he passed last week at the ripe old age of 90. I'm sorry. Just want to get this right, At 94, he passed away at 94. It's pretty sad because just a few months earlier, his wife Barbara Bush died. He was from Maine. He was from Maine, and actually, for a time, the Bushes lived in Compton, California. And yes, that Compton. Before the White Flight, as it were. They lived in Compton for a little bit, and then before, I guess, settling in Texas. I honestly don't know too much about Bush Sr. He was president when I was but a boy, I honestly don't know too much about him, except for what I learned on The Simpsons. But it's interesting. It's just interesting to me how the biased media, demonizes people on the right, but as soon as they die, they automatically become good guys. They confer upon them sainthood. Just a few years ago, they were lambasting them and grossly mischaracterizing them. But as soon as they die, they start saying, they put out all these pieces about how great a person they were, and how thankful they are for their service. But they villainize these people, particularly the one on the right. They call them monsters and warmongers, and and the like. But as soon as they die, they're all of a sudden like they're best friends. I mean, and we saw this a little bit with, or we saw this with John McCain, the senator from Arizona, where before they're calling John, when John McCain ran for president, they called him a racist. Excuse me. They called him, they just flat out called him a racist. But as soon as he died, he was like, oh, he was such a man. He was a man, in service for the people. He was a war hero, and all of this. But where was that? Uh, where was that deferential treatment when he was alive? You know, I mean, I don't care. I mean, if you think that he's a bad man, John McCain or George Bush, you think they're bad men. Think they're bad men, but don't put it out over the airwaves or in print and say like, oh, these guys are racist or these guys are monsters or they don't care about black people. And then as soon as they die, it's like, oh, they were such champions. They served their country. Because you can't live with monsters. You just can't live with monsters. You have to kill monsters. I remember back in the day when Twilight first came out. There was that in the previews for the movie. There's that scene where what's his face, Edwin, the vampire Edwin reveals himself as a vampire to old Sourface. Kristen Stewart, that's what. And he's like, what are you? And she asks, like, what are you? And he says, say it. And then she says, vampire. But there was a parody. There was a parody skit done, I think, by G4, the now the defunct gaming network. Where they did the whole setup where it's like where the girl says like, what are you? And the guy says, say it. And the girl says, vampire. And then immediately vampire slayers come in and kill the vampire, and they say you're supposed to kill vampires. You're not supposed to fall in love with them. And and yeah, that's what you're supposed to do with monsters. You're supposed to kill them. But what happens when the monster dies? They all of a sudden become this tragic figure and someone who's to be lauded and respected. It's like you just called him a monster. You made him out to be a monster. So how does that work? I mean, that's what I'm really confused about. How does one person go from a monster to all of a sudden being this great saint? I mean, that's really what I want to know. But even though I'm perplexed by all of this, and it is damn confusing how someone goes from a monster one minute to dedicated patriot the next. One of the shining lights from this sad event was the left and the right coming together over Sully, former President Bush's service dog. Sully, I believe, is the name of the dog, and just how and how much of an internet celebrity he's become. I think the most famous picture was of George Bush's casket with the flag draped over it, and then you see Sully lying down in front of the casket, with his human. And I saw left leaning celebrities putting up that picture and saying like, oh, loyal to the end, and all that kind of all the nice things that one says about someone who's recently passed. And yeah, I gotta admit that did encourage me. I was encouraged that there could be not so much a reconciliation, but an encouragement that bridges could be built, and issues could be somehow not overcome, but bypassed. I guess would be a better way of saying it. Bypassed for the moment, for events such as these. And yeah, that's and it got me. It got me hopeful. It got me hopeful for this country. It got me hopeful for being an American. And I hope, all of you are too, because we can't always live by which side of the aisle we're on or which team we're on, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, but we're also Americans. And to quote two great senators, at least at the time, we just have different idea. We both have idea. We both have we all have ideas. I'm sorry. We're not evil. It's just we have different ideas of how to make the country great.